Basically, anything that didn't have Michael Myers in it was boring as fuck and was as useless as an asshole on your left elbow. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Jeff and Collin in the Morning, where we are your hosts, Collin Peters
and Jeff Manfred.
So we didn't really have a major topic to discuss today, but what we did come up with was this idea of how certain horror movies have come back and we get these reboots or requels, as they say, and some of us came up with ideas about what they could do and where they could go after these requel ideas are done. Like, for example, Halloween got the requel.
Treatment?
There you go. Thank you.
I knew you were going when you said trequel.
I was like, oh, fuck.
Well, technically it'd be the requel trilogy, so.
Technically, yes. It's a trilogy with the original attached, so technically it's not really a trilogy because there's 4 movies, but whatever.
Yeah.
But there's been so many attempts and tries at these reboots or requels, as they say, and it looks like Halloween is a good example of they're doing the requel, they're gonna tell a 1, 2, 3, and then they don't really know what's in store for it at the end. Because I guess this is just wrapping up Jamie Lee Curtis's story.
It should wrap up everything, because you're calling it Halloween Ends. I figured it,
But we all know it's not gonna end.
I know, but I mean, if you got a 40-year sequel, then you got a sequel to the 40, and then you're doing a trilogy of the 40, it kind of, to me, is like, all right, you're wrapping up her, and she should be done. Like, Halloween itself could always live on.
That's what I mean.
I mean, dude, I'm still waiting for Season of the Witch 2, so I don't give a fuck.
Hey, don't ever count it out, man.
I know was the dude that wrote the new Halloween was already talking about doing a follow-up to that, and I'm like, fuck right, let's do this.
I've been curious about it.
I just want to see if Tom Atkins would come back for even just a cameo.
I'd be down for that. I really would be. I mean, even though I've been critical of Halloween 3, I don't bash on it because it's really not the worst movie I've ever seen.
No, I've seen a lot worse, trust me.
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely very interesting. It's worth a watch. I just think that there are just some things in it that are a major letdown that could have been better. Is the best way I can describe it. Like, they have a lot good going on for them, and a lot of good for a Halloween film in general. Not as the series, but just as like a seasonal Halloween movie.
Yeah.
Where I thought was really cool, and it was, oh man, the idea to me was just still so genius that you take that Halloween franchise and turn it into an anthology series. That was just such a genius idea. And every year you come up with a horror movie for the Hollywood machine, and under the title Halloween, and then you have something like Season of the Witch or Frankenstein's Monster or Dracula, werewolves, like something like that. It would have been, oh man, it was such a damn good idea. And it's a shame that they just didn't give it the proper treatment it got. It might have lived on, and like we said before, who's to say that Michael Myers wanted to come back?
Yeah.
They could have done that whenever and said, okay, well, maybe they want another sequel to this guy. Or maybe even limiting Michael Myers in a way would still kind of add a little more like, well, maybe he can come back again in a few years or something,
I mean, like, what they did with Season of the Witch, he was in the movie, but as the Halloween movie, so it actually was funny that he was still in it, yet even if they would have continued the anthology as Halloween, but kind of like stupid things like that. All right, we're showing this movie at 8 o'clock, blah, blah, or having Michael's mask somewhere.
I think that would have been really cool if they would have had his mask somewhere, especially because that was the main theme, were these masks that were just like sabotaged to be, murder weapons, basically. I
mean, we've talked about it multiple times. Like, if they rounded out this trilogy as feeding in Season of the Witch as part of the continuity, it would probably make more sense, especially the newest version of Michael we saw, the Killing Monster. It probably would have made sense, because dude got straight up annihilated by a mob, and he just killed them all anyway. So
The only thing I have with the issue with him wearing the mask and that causing him to be him is it doesn't make any sense for him as the kid, because it was supposed to be that he was just pure evil, and that was the message of this is what evil is, this is what evil does. But who's to say that like somebody couldn't have created a mask that would create the new Michael Myers, and then it's almost like Michael Myers will never die because this could be you or something crazy stupid like that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many ways you could go about it, and because it was like as we all said in the Halloween 3 episode, you had this like James Bond villain kind of scenario here, and I mean, we can all relate to these like wealthy megalomaniacs that could come up with stuff like this. I mean, there are all these like weird conspiracy theories out about things like like the Georgia Guidestones where it says maintain population below 500 million or something like that, and they think these wealthy billionaires have something to do with that and have something in store for the general population, and along with these like all these wealthy people that go out to Davos and the World Economic Forum, and they talk about all these like crazy ideas that they have for like globally. And so it's like, I mean, wealthy people with, you know, crazy ideas that kill us all. It's, not too far from the truth. And then you mix just a little bit of spirituality in there, and, you definitely have a horror movie. And it could be something that could be carried on. Like Cochrane's plan in Halloween 3 was to bring back the actual, like, not the legend, how do I say that? He wanted to bring back, like, the real meaning of Halloween.
Oh yeah.
And like the child sacrifice, which is like a very like satanic practice by like sacrificing and demoralizing kids and shit like that. It's almost like an initiation for Satanists in a way. So, and it really is like one of the lowest things you could ever do. I mean, that's why Wes Craven made Freddy Krueger a child, not just a murderer, but a pedophile yet. So it's like not only like he embarrasses them and then kills them, and it's like, geez, how much lower can you fucking go? And people
Yeah.
forget about that with Freddy, because it was kind of sidestepped in the first movie. And I think they said because there was like it would have been a little too on the nose, because there was like a lot of pedophilia like coming out or in the 80s in the news in that time, and it was kind of like, you might want to backtrack on it a little bit.
Freddy Krueger, out of every character here, has probably got the most popular. And I never even put two and two together. Like, yes, the whole pedophile thing. But you think about, dude, a burnt pedophile got very popular because of how much of a smartass he was. It seemed like, as society, we overlooked the fact that he did all this shit. But I'm like, dude, what the fuck? And it's like, but I get it. Robert Englund did such an amazing job that he took that character and made it his own. And over time, it just seemed like he was just killing teenager. He was a slasher, and
and that's how the movies gravitated towards it, was
Yeah.
just killing the teenagers.
where it did downplay it a little bit. It, like you said, it just because it was in the news a lot, but it's like we did get to see more of his like home life as time went on. So you kind of saw he was already fucked up going into it. Like we got with the Rob Zombie's Halloween, you get to see his home life was really fucked up. So it's like it seems more or less like your how did I say it before? I don't like seeing my monsters humanized. Where with Freddy Krueger, you saw what he really was. Like, yeah, he was an abused kid. He was really fucked up, but in the outcome, he was still a monster. And I feel like even with that franchise, even with the remake we got, which you've heard me and you talk about how much we absolutely hated it because it did play up the one thing that nobody should talk about. And I get it. It was part of him. It made him. But it's like, I feel as though if you make that the main focal point in a movie, you kind of already are dead in the water.
Well, my problem with that was it was all about pedophilia. It wasn't even about him being a child murderer.
Yeah.
They didn't even. I remember there was a trailer where they showed like a similar scene in the beginning of the original where he was making the glove, and then the glove really didn't have anything to do with the kids or the murders. I think at one point Kyle Gallner, like towards the end of the movie, they find part of the finger lying around in that secret hideaway where he took the kids, and I was like, that was it. And it was almost as if they insinuated it almost like as a weird S&M toy.
Yeah, I think they also hinted at like the glove as when he was using the what's that, not the hoe, the gardening tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there going, is that supposed to mean something? Like, it's been a while since I've watched it. I'm gonna admit this is gonna sound horrible. I have watched it a couple of times because like the first time I was so speechless. I was like, I didn't know how I felt. So I was
That's
like,
how I felt when I first saw it.
And so I was like, I watched it I think like a total of 4 times, trying to figure out what it was about it that had made me feel uneasy. And that's what it was. It was like you played up to such a mean thing, horrible thing about this character. It's like there's no coming back from it. Like, yeah, he's a monster, but like, dude, you gotta tone it down just enough that you gotta keep the character kind of balanced. Where that it's like, yeah, you hit some really cool shots, like her dreaming in and out while she's awake was cool. Some stuff like that, but still, at the end of the day,
yeah, I think that was just it. Like, the problem with the reboot was there was some good things about it. Like, it brought back the darkness. It brought back a lot more of the serious tone. Like, when we had our Freddy's Dead versus the 2010 reboot movie, yeah, Freddy's Dead is like totally over the top, campy, inspired by John Waters type stuff. It was probably even some of the same crew members, I think, that worked with John Waters in a lot of movies, which, explains a lot.
Listen, Crybaby is still an amazing movie, okay?
I don't have a problem with that. But the reboot just like falls flat on so many levels that it's kind of like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. There is a lot of like really good stuff that can make that movie work, but at the end of the day, there's just this like weird execution that it doesn't mesh. There's way too much swearing in it. The flow of the movie is just bad. I don't think it's relatable with everybody because everybody's just like white trash in it, and nobody gives a damn about any of these characters, really.
I mean, I did hear him say, like, after we did our Rob Zombie episode, I did actually check out some interviews with him where he talked about, yeah, he got pigeonholed with that character type, but he's doing it because he liked the movies of that era. So those 70s and 80s movies where it was kind of like really gritty, like grindhousey, that's what he stuck to. And he's like, I kind of realized I got pigeonholed in it, but it was my own fault. And it made sense when, like, after we talked about it, and then I'm like, I can see it. I'm like, now you're starting to get out of it. Like, all right, so you did it with Boards of Salem. You are trying to expand your now horizons, which is kind of cool. But like, you did have stepping stones, which was cool. Seeing that he did admit that this is what it was.
Now, I can't fault him for saying that that's him and that's what he wants. Because if that's him and that's your stamp, hey, don't change who you are and change your style just because somebody says that you should. But at the end of the day, then maybe you shouldn't do it for this movie because, I don't know. I think I heard Prince say it before, like, why do we need something done over again when we already created something beautiful?
Yeah. I think it's more or less for him because, like, I'm really nervous about Monsters because, like, it's one, like, we've talked about it before where I'm really excited for it, but I'm also, like, reserved because I'm like, all right, you got 2 elements coming together. And I know he's a huge fan, and it's just one of those things like, is it really going to be a Monsters movie, or is it Rob Zombie's Monsters movie?
Yeah, I know. I think the costumes and the makeup look like they're sticking to the originality, which looks really cool. I'm really pumped about that.
And they're starting to show a lot more characters coming out, and I'm excited to see them. And that was the cool thing. I'm like, I love the fact he is taking the time, and it's pretty much I'm getting excited. I shouldn't, but I will.
Nowadays, it's almost best to keep your expectations low because we've had so many of these. Like, going back to like what Prince said, I totally get what he meant by like, why do we need to recreate this stuff? But as fans, we know that guys like Robert Englund can't be Freddy Krueger forever, but if we want more, it's like, well, should you kind of like reboot it because he's such a staple that you can't just like do a sequel to something that he created in a series? And in my opinion, I think the Robert Englund era is done.
Yeah.
I totally feel like, I mean, even though he could probably do it again one more time, and would I love to see him? Yes, if they would bring him back. I'm not gonna be like, oh man, they're bringing him back again. But I don't think I'd be too excited either, just because I know he can't do it forever, and he's talked about maybe there's one more in me, but if we move on, we move on. I think, if anything, I'm more upset at the fact that they had the opportunity to do a couple more with him and they didn't.
Yeah.
That's my biggest disappointment with that. But I think it's definitely time now at this point to move on. I mean, the reboot's already 12 years old, and that didn't even take off and do anything, and hopefully lessons were learned. I mean, that was just so bad on so many levels anyway. And I think A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original was just so great, and we live in a time now where horror like that and the slasher, even with the psychology mixed in with it, it still won't be the same. So you're basically just making it for entertainment purposes at this point, and just saying that here's another slasher, we're gonna like redo it or something. The only way I could see them like doing anything else continuing the Robert Englund era would be, they'd almost have to do something like a Halloween 2018 where somehow Heather Langenkamp would come back. Like maybe, like there was a comic book I think where she as Nancy was like this good dream person,
Oh, that'd be
and
sick.
and maybe Lisa Wilcox could like train kids or other people into being dream masters, and Nancy could like help guide them and fight Freddy. And then like one way how he gets resurrected is this rumor that they had these like from past scripts of a cult called Fred Heads, where they heard about him and like wore the sweater and did all sorts of like weird shit. It's like you almost have to make it a tribute for like one last hurrah sort of thing, and
Yeah.
bring back those old people, and give it something that like Wes Craven would pour his heart into.
I would say very similar to Scream 5. It was called 6.
Yeah, exactly. I think that would be more of the route to go for a final Nightmare on Elm Street movie in the Robert Englund era. Even though I think it's done. It's it's just totally done. Because I mean, Nancy was such a crucial character. I think Heather Langenkamp is just as important as Robert Englund in a lot of ways to that series. I think it'd be cool if Lisa Wilcox got another good movie under her belt, because Dream Child, I know you and I've talked about Dream Child, how again that like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, like there was actually a lot of really good things in Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, but the execution was just so bad, and I think part of it was because that movie was just rushed.
I could see that, yeah. I mean, we've watched that documentary how many times, and like, there's stuff I even glaze over because it's like, eh.
And it's sad because there's definitely touchy subjects about pregnancy, abortion, and there are good characters in that movie that you feel for and that get brutal, gruesome deaths in it. And they do have entertaining parts, but the movie as a whole just kind of falls flat. I mean, I think it was well directed, like shots of it were definitely put together well, but the whole thing as a whole and the ending was just like, this is really
It wasn't executed
no.
great. It wasn't amazing. I would even love to see them kind of expand on how we do Nightmare on Elm Street 2. The whole like bring Freddy into the real world. That was a concept that fucked me up when I was a teenager, because like New Nightmare, Freddy's in the real world. He's now a real thing. I go 2. I didn't see it until later because I've always heard it wasn't great. Until like watching it, I'm like, yo, that was ahead of its time.
It was, and I think the problem with it was, you know how we said like Halloween had Halloween 1, Halloween 2, and then Halloween 3 just was totally different.
Yeah.
And that was another failure of why Halloween 3 didn't work. Because you already established Michael Myers was the franchise in 1 and 2. And then you say, oh, now with the third one, we're going to do something totally different. And it's like doing a whirlpool, and then you're going against the current, and you're like, whoa, something's going on here.
Yeah.
And I understood what everybody thought when they said, well, like, why does Freddy want to take over somebody and come out in the real world when he has like unlimited possibilities in the dream world? I mean, I could see it. I could almost see something like that more in a 5th movie, just because it's like, let's try something new. You know, I'm immortal. I can fuck with all these people. Let's do something different.
But you think about it, they didn't know where to go from one. And then two being the fact that he wanted to be in the real world made a little more sense because at the end of the day, if they're not afraid of a dream, what's going to happen? You disappear. But if you're out in the real world killing people, yeah, your immortality is always going to be there because you were a dream demon who's now real again.
And then people like physically saw him and said, "Yo, man, this shit's real." And that's what kind of makes 3 feel like it doesn't make sense. It's almost like they erased 2.
Yeah, like, oh no, let's just push this on the side.
Like,
anyway.
Kind of like what they did with Friday the 13th after Part 5. They went from 4. They kind of like brushed 5 under the rug and we're like, yeah, 6 we're going to pick up as if it like just ended at 4.
Yeah, he was in the cemetery this whole time. But, I mean, even with like moving forward, I know Robert Englund was saying that he did want to write one more script, I think he called it his final nightmare, where he would be Freddy, but not Freddy the whole time. So like everybody would see Freddy as a different person. So almost like Dr. Emporium's concept, where
yeah,
and it made sense to me because everyone's nightmares are different. Even if you have the same monster, you might look totally different.
And in 2022, like let's just say hypothetically, 2003 was when Freddy vs. Jason came out. And that was the last time Robert Englund's Freddy especially, made his appearance. And kids were talking about him in that movie. Remember in like the cornfield and in the schools, they were saying, oh, there was the rumors about this Freddy Krueger guy. I could totally see something like that happening. My problem with that concept is I like the idea, but for Robert Englund's last movie, do you really want to like not have him in it all that much?
I mean, I would be fine. Because he is older, and I know there's going to be a lot more on him, but if he wrote it, it would make more sense.
It all comes down to execution for me. Like, if the finale would also be great, and you... like kind of like in Ghostbusters.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
When the 3 came back, and you were like, awesome.
I fucking cried, alright?
I know, right? That doesn't get you going, holy shit. And it made sense because there wasn't like a whole lot of busting. They just told a lot of the jokes, did a lot of kid adventures, and then at the very end, because there's only so many ghosts you can zap and beat them, and like I think that's where like the cartoon was more entertaining than what you could do in movies with a Ghostbusters franchise. Like people don't realize how tricky Ghostbusters is to make as a movie.
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing the Halloween demon in real life.
Oh, Sam Hain?
Yeah. I thought that was actually pretty cool, but
that was a cool concept.
Dude, that's one universe that could actually bring all these universes together. That and Evil Dead, because the Necronomicon was one of those biggest things. Like that would be actually a sequel for Evil Dead. Yeah, Evil Dead and Freddy vs. Jason was the Necronomicon bringing Freddy into the real world, and Jason's already here, and the book just happened to be at Camp Crystal Lake.
Yeah, well, in Jason Goes to Hell, the Necronomicon's in the Voorhees house.
Yeah. So it makes sense. Like, there's a lot of, like, similarities. And, like, even the Freddy glove in Evil Dead 2, it's, like, it showed that, yeah, they are fans of each other, so it's kind of cool seeing that. But it's, like, in the end, they could be all in the same universe. Nobody realizes it.
And Nancy watching Evil Dead in her bedroom before Glenn
what the fuck?
sneaks in. And then, like, wasn't there, like, a Hills Have Eyes poster in the basement of the first Evil Dead?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go.
There's a lot there. You can see he was a fan of Wes Craven. I mean, like I said, they could have all been in the same universe. We didn't realize it.
True.
Because there's a lot of stuff that does happen, and you're like, wait, isn't that...
Is it just a weird coincidence, or are they fans just paying tribute?
I mean, come on. You got an older Ash, you have an older Freddy. It'd be kind of cool seeing those two going back and forth, especially the quips that they'd have, especially Ash. I mean, come on.
That would be some funny shit with Freddy and Ash.
Dude, it could be an hour and a half long. Just those two talking shit back and forth, and Jason just like... dude, that'd be an amazing interview, too.
That's another thing. I know that, like, Evil Dead's taking its own turn with another reboot again, which I can understand. I mean, I enjoyed the remake that they had and didn't feel the need that they didn't have to continue it, like with different characters now. But I guess I guess it goes to show that with Evil Dead, it really doesn't just fall on one person because the
No.
Deadites are everywhere anyway. So
Well, I think that was the point of this new movie, because like with the remake still being in the Ash universe, because a little clip at the end of the movie, it is showing like yeah, there's more going on. Like it's not just focused on Ashley Williams, but it's like there's a lot more there. He just happens to be the most well known face because it's Bruce fucking Campbell, and the girl playing Mia, that was Jane
Levy.
I think so. But she did an amazing job. I would love to see her come back, even as a cameo in the new one. But as long as you keep linking them, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that Evil Dead remake. It's one of the very few that I think really succeeded, and not only just succeeded, but succeeded as something without eh, like main characters as a drive, like no Ash. Even though the brother, because there was a brother sister, and the brother did kind of wear some Ash-looking attire.
Yeah, I still feel bad for Mia.
Oh my god, that poor girl.
Yeah, the fact that like the twist, like you thought the brother was gonna be the hero, and all of a sudden that sister comes back all fucking fine. Like, oh hell yeah!
That made it even better. You're watching it going, holy fuck yeah, because you think, oh no, she's not coming back, and the brother's gonna be the hero, and no, that's not what happens. I was like, all right.
And I like that movie to me is probably like one of the best remakes out there, and I am not really a big fan of remakes, but that one will always have a place in my heart because how fucking brutal that really became. Because like I feel bad for taking Lexi on a date to that movie. I feel bad because I was even like, holy fuck, what are we watching? But if I ever talk about that movie, that scene on the basement stairs where she cuts her tongue and then kind of goes up at her is what I show everybody. Everyone hates me too because I'm like I'll start talking about this movie and then I'm like, all right, best scene on this entire movie. And I'll explain it. Go, you know what? I'll just show you. And they're like, fuck you. That franchise alone, I think, has made leaps and bounds between the movie series and the show, and I guess the spinoff movies. I guess we'll call them. Because to me, they're not really even remakes. They're more of sequels. Like, yeah, it may not be our Ash. It's definitely our universe though. So it's like they're gonna keep building on the idea of it, and that's where I think most horror movies should go. Because, like I said, older Freddy now, older Robert Englund, not older Freddy, but like they can work on something there. They can try to figure out what they can make that universe kind of work together. Now with this lawsuit over, I did read we might actually get some more Friday 13th, but they're still trying to figure out the know-how of how to make it work. I know right now they're doing they're trying to do a Pamela Voorhees prequel.
That might be interesting.
I would love to see what really drove her over the edge, because I'm wondering if she was already kind of crazy, like a crazy like helicopter mom, and then because her kid was trying to say nicely,
yeah, deformed.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder if like she was already kind of like, well, don't hurt my baby, this and that. So it's like really crazy helicopter mom. So it makes me wonder if that's what played into the first movie. So it's like, makes me wonder if you can expand on that story.
Yeah, I'm not gonna give too many details away because, like, I mean, who the hell knows? I mean, nothing may never happen. But I remember you and I were talking about like how we'd love to see Kane Hodder come back, and he said he's pretty much game, even though he's like pushing 70. Like,
Dude.
I think he would still totally do Jason no matter what. But I was like in the process of writing a script and coming up with some ideas, and it actually involved the dad.
Yeah.
And some past victims and stuff. And I remember I pitched it to you, and you said, wow, this sounds really wild, and I think we should see more of the dad involved, and I think there is something there with this, because like even growing up, I heard so many people say, well, what made Jason? Like, what made him this monster from the undead? I mean, like 6, we definitely get that he's more of the zombie. But then at one point in part 4, they said, no, he's dead. They officially killed him off and buried him. And like, it's why they went in the direction they did in part 5. Because they were like, it's over and done with, no more Jason.
I mean, when you chop his head like damn near in half from the side, I figured that he was dead, and then there's no coming back from that. Like, yeah, you have to like make an undead monster now.
And there's all these, like, when you dive deep in the, like, these like weird horror spells and some other things, because I remember I was doing research and finding out about these like demonology spells that I guess others can use to like conjure up like demons or dead people and things like that. There are definitely ways that build this connection even between a mother and a father that could help with an offspring to come back. And I was like, well, hell, like let's take that, use it, put it in the movie. Because another cool thing about horror films was that it introduced that stuff that we didn't know about. Like the Conjuring movies, to a lot of people who didn't know demonology, learned about the 3 stages of possession. You know, we didn't like get that from The Exorcist or nothing. It was just kind of like it. You saw the incremental stages happening, but they weren't broken down and explained. Not like what Ed and Lorraine Warren do in the movies and how they go about it. And I've heard some people say that those movies are very, very like you can tell the people who make them do their homework, but you know, at the end of the day, they're still Hollywood.
Yeah, they're not gonna give you like 100%. They're just gonna be like, well, we'll use up to, let's say, step C, and then we'll like, fuck it, let's do whatever we want.
Because a lot of times, really, like what we see in those movies aren't how exorcisms or whatever they do, you know, really aren't like as entertaining as what we'd want to see in a movie. And it's like that's where Hollywood is kind of like on an entertaining side, but there is like a sense of education, and if it captures your eye and you're interested in knowing what's going on, it could be a good motivating tool to like read into it and go, oh, okay, so this is what it's like, and you watch videos wherever they're available, and you go, oh, so that's, I can see why Hollywood made it the way it is.
But I mean, even they're talking about doing more sequels to that, to Exorcist. I don't know where the fuck they would go with it.
Oh man, that's. I mean, if they can, great.
I feel like right now, because horror itself has become really popular. Like, you know, I feel like we went in stages. Like, action was really big in the 80s. 90s, it seemed more like sci-fi. 2000s, I'm feeling like it was more or less like that found footage. Don't get me wrong, like, A24 is doing really good with all their crazy-ass movies. And James Wan, on the other hand, he can do horror, but I feel like there's a lot of movies out there right now that are getting a lot more praise than what they're worth. I'm going to do 2 big instances for me are Hereditary. That movie fucking sucks. I don't care what everyone says. Because, A, it takes too long to get to the motherfucking point. B, visual effects don't make a movie. You got to actually have a story, actually play along nicely. And C, I go, just because the ending's good does not make the whole movie good.
Yeah.
Same thing with Malignant. That movie was amazing up until the hour mark. And in that last half hour, you're supposed to believe that this motherfucking whatever in the back of the head was doing all this? Please, tell me with a straight face that this wasn't a great idea. I go, I can understand all the way to the end of the movie, last 10 minutes, not the last half hour.
I can't explain that because I haven't seen either or.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even, I really have no desire for him either. I mean, like, I felt like the trailers looked good, but I never said, oh, I gotta see it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally gotten to the point where, like, I have no curiosity. Like, I think that was part of my problem with some of the old 80s slasher movies, because I was hoping more would be revealed, like more about Jason or Freddy, like, you know, and you didn't really get that.
No.
And when you did, it sucked. You know, you had like Freddy's dead and it was weak and then it humanized him. Hell, part of me says I think it would have been better if he was just a normal kid.
Yeah.
You know, it would have been even scarier. Because it's like, oh, there's really nothing wrong with him. I mean, he was to himself, but...
I mean, that's essentially the idea of Michael Myers, though. He was a normal kid and had no problems until we got Rob Zombies, and then it made him a monster. where normal kid doing it is a lot scarier than fucked up kid. Like, yeah, what made him snap?
Yeah, he has a reason. He has an excuse. It's like, why is Jason so angry? Well, he was picked on because he was deformed. Camp counselors probably bullied him too. Nobody gave a shit when he was drowning, and then he knew about his mom dying, and then like the only person who loved him, yeah, he's gonna be pissed as fuck.
Same concept as Hatchet. That was deformed kid getting bullied, and it created a monster, and that is probably like one of the modern era slashers I was happy to see, like, actually as a slasher, because like you said, all slashers aren't amazing. There's no real point to them. Like, they were pumping them out like crazy, and that's what probably killed the slasher genre, because there's too much.
It was saturated and they got crap.
Oh my god, yeah.
Like, we talked about Friday the 13th in the whole franchise episode, that the first one sticks out like a sore thumb because it's the first one.
Yeah.
And there's meaning behind it. There's depth. There's different shots and filming. Second one's just cut, paste, repeat. Basically, same thing with the third one. Fourth one kind of got away from it. But we didn't really see anything different until the sixth one. And here you got an actual hero versus villain in it yet, too.
Yeah.
And there were stakes involved because the camp was open and there were kids involved now. There was like so much going on in 6 that just made it so interesting, and it stuck with pop culture with having Alice Cooper music in it. And 6 was just like one of those, like, shot well, written well. Actors were pretty good in it, and it had a lot going on. And 7 was interesting as well because it gave him an adversary that
it was almost the same level.
Exactly, and it was and somebody who was dealing with her own struggles, but in a different way. And like, she was a victim within herself because of her telekinesis killing her dad.
Yeah.
And even though, like, he was a drunk and got abusive, it was still her dad. And then there was like some rectification at the end of it. That was interesting.
I would say out of all the sequels, 6 and 7 are the two that stand out the most because they felt like they were the best, well written, and shot the best. Because like you said before, it was just like, oh, he's a lumbering monster, I guess. And then now you've actually got this big dude who is a real undead monster. You understand why he's not getting killed now, and even at the point where he's decaying,
he's still coming back.
Like. And I would love to see, at least we were talking about before, one more Friday the 13th, as with Jason, done, call it the final, whatever, and then bring back all the finals. That's all we need. Even if they go forward in time, technically backward in time, and do like the prequels leading up to 1, I'm fine with 2, because like seeing him more of seeing Pamela and that lifestyle would probably be cool too. But other than that, I'm like, that's one series like I feel like has started running its course, because like it's starting to become rinse and repeat. And even the 2009 one was the same problem. It brought a lot of cool things to the table. The acting was actually decent, and it made Jason really smart. And that was it. It's the same thing. There you go.
I consider the 2009 one more of a tribute movie than a reboot than anything.
Because it's essentially all 3 movies in one.
Yeah, that's the best way I can describe it. I mean, it had its 2009 twist, but it had these tributes that you could say, oh, this was from number 4, that one's from part 3. The rag was supposed to be like the sack from 2, and
I felt like the rag was actually scarier in that movie than in the
me too. I did as well. Plus, it just looked dirty and grimy.
He's like, breathing through that?
Yeah, but it wasn't like, I didn't feel like it was gonna jumpstart the franchise, because as entertaining as it is, it was just lackluster and like a revitalizing the franchise. I'm not saying that Derek Mears couldn't play Jason again, but I'm just saying that I just felt like that movie as a whole was like good as a standalone, tribute type movie.
Yeah, you can tell fans made it.
Yeah. After Halloween Ends, I will say I've had a couple different ideas, and I know sometimes I get some criticism for this because I always not always. I shouldn't say always because that'd be a lie. But the more I got in the movies, I realized that even though Jamie Lee Curtis is the A-list star, she wasn't then, and in that series, it was really more about Dr. Loomis and Michael Myers, and that's where I say, like, I think it's more interesting to see and watch Halloween 4 and 5 because Dr. Loomis knows the monster and he knows what he has to do to try to stop him and warn people. You know, he's the only one with like any sort of insight. Jamie Lee Curtis is just like trauma filled. Like even in H2O, she had trauma, and it was kind of like a build your confidence and take on the monster again. And she just knows about being a victim. And it's kind of like the same thing in 2018, except she's just ready.
Yeah.
You know, she's got trauma, but she's ready. She wants to kill him in the worst way possible. So it goes from being scared, stay away, to overcoming your fears, to being traumatized, but preparing yourself for years for when he escapes to end it.
I mean, even with that series, I would love to see Danielle Harris come back.
I said the same thing. I said I think what they should do maybe after Halloween ends is if they want to continue it, it would be more interesting to see Danielle Harris come back as like the new like reboot Halloween 6 and do a 4, 5, and 6 with her growing up.
I mean, technically they can get away with 6 being still in play because we all know that wasn't Danielle Harris. You can call her Jamie all you want. And be like, oh, well, he found somebody that was like her.
I think that Thorn shit, though, ruined everything. It was just so bizarre, and it wasn't well explained. It was kind of like they said, here's a cult. Okay. What's exactly the spell? You know, like, what's the point? It just felt so vague and out of nowhere.
Why does it feel like there could be more done with Halloween than any other franchise? Because they have so many fucking timelines that they could actually keep going and not really rebooting, finishing out those story arcs. Because, like, all right, so you got the Thorn one going. You stopped it essentially at 5. 6 is just Paul Rudd being Paul Rudd. Still, that dude never fucking ages.
It's true.
But yeah, it would, like, that one they could have done, they could do one off of H2O and Resurrection. Hell, they just keep going, well, this didn't work, let's move to the next set. And the next set.
At least they know what doesn't work, and then they go, okay, maybe we can reboot it here. Instead of starting from scratch. Remember, I mean, like, some comic book movies were like that. Like, oh, Spider-Man 3 wasn't really well received. Okay, well, instead of a 4th, you know, like, Sam Raimi dropped out. Okay, well, let's just reboot the whole thing.
Yeah.
Let's not even try to make a 4th one with somebody else. Let's just reboot it and get somebody new. And then Amazing Spider-Man 2 didn't do all that well, and then all of a sudden it was, I guess they were going to try to work on a 3rd one, and then the deal with Disney came in, and it was like, oh, well, fuck Andrew Garfield in the series now. And yeah, I do agree with you that it does feel like Halloween can be like expanded probably as one of the most. I mean, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is another one that's just gone all over the damn place, and there's really none of them are really worth watching again, though, is the problem.
I think the original one is, and then that's about it, because like I recently rewatched them all, and leading up to that new one, and it was like after the original one, because that giant gap between the two, 1 and 2, funny. I think that's what really killed that series. If they were able to keep the same grittiness throughout and maybe make a sequel, let's say like 2 or 3 years after, but still before Halloween, it probably would have been fine. But when he decided to make it into almost a comedy, and then kind of try to bring back more of the horror elements, but still keep it like the dumb laughs, I think that's what really killed it.
Yeah, I mean, 2 is entertaining. I will say that. Does it hold rewatchability? Depends on your mood, I guess. Scary? Not at all.
You said 2, right? With
Caroline Williams?
Yeah. That's what you said. I'm like, did you just say 2?
Yeah, 2.
But yeah, dude, the whole scene with them in the radio station, was it Leatherface having the puppet where he's with the dead body and with the chainsaw?
It, like you said, dumb laughs.
I think Bill Moseley is obviously the biggest character to come out of it besides Dustin Hoffman. That was right.
Hopper.
Hopper, yeah. Too many Dustins.
Dennis Hopper.
Yeah.
Not
All I remember is the double chainsaw. It's like, you killed my...
I will say that I enjoy the reboot, though.
No, yeah, that one...
The 2003 one.
Yeah.
I mean, that was probably about the only other... I know it got a lot of flack because it was actually directed by the same guy who did the Friday the 13th reboot.
Oh, okay.
And people said it didn't have the same feel. It wasn't like that gritty documentary style thing. I was like, it was still scary. It added suspense. I think Jessica Biel was really good in it.
Like, she normally does, like, the romantic comedies. Like, she has done a lot more thrillers now. But that, I think, was a nice difference for her. Because, like, it showed that she could do all.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie really showed it.
It built her as a badass as well.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
Dude. She showed a lot of range of motion in that. And I enjoyed watching her in that and said, hey, man, if she's in something, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, at that time, it was, Seventh Heaven she was pretty much known for. It was that show about it was, like, very family oriented or something, and then she went and did this, and it was like that was really cool.
Yeah,
it was a good transition, and it showed off a lot of chops, and I think it was made well. I mean, despite how people feel about it, and I think it was also just here's a reboot, a remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it was like, how dare you touch this? But
I mean, to be honest, I didn't give two flying fucks about
I didn't either. I remember the trailer surprised me. I was like, okay, this looks interesting. And yeah. I still enjoy it. I mean, is it as great as the original? No. But it's something more if you want it. And it's like, I think it's worth a watch.
Yeah.
I think too many people give it flack than what it deserves.
I mean, even with the original, I don't think too many people gave it that much. Even at the time, because Tobe Hooper was actually calling the the board just to see what he could put in the movie.
What he could get away with.
Yeah, he's like, all right, he'd be filming a scene. He goes, can I show, let's say, I don't know, cut that lady's leg off or whatever. They're like, no. Goes, all right.
But that's a franchise I have no idea where they can go.
But with that one, technically they've tried to reboot it twice, like requel-wise. And I had to think about it because like they did a 30-year sequel, which actually wasn't bad, and it wasn't amazing, but it wasn't bad. And then they did the 50. That one was straight trash.
Oh, the current Netflix one. Yeah, I remember I watched it and was like why bother?
I mean, like the trailer made it look good. That's a problem with trailers. But it made it look good. We all knew what we were going in for, but we didn't know what we were going in for. I think it took on a lot more pop culture than we all realized, too. I mean, a lot more.
It did take in a lot. I mean,
current events, I should say, is a real word, not pop culture.
Yeah, that's one way to say it. It didn't really bother me. I just didn't have any sort of, like, gush over it, I guess is the best way to say it.
I think my biggest gripe with it, a chainsaw sitting in a wall for 50 years does not start up that easy. I don't give two fucks who said that was a great idea. I'm actually pissed about that.
Never mind, Leatherface had to be, 70?
Yeah, he was an old guy. But who knows?
I don't know. It was like one of the more real characters, and he's getting shot up and coming back and still full of energy and like, not even worry about knee replacements or something. It's just like weird. I was like, no, I'm not really falling for that. And then at one point they like even looked like he also had that weird freakish strength. Oh, that's the movie where they said, oh, you don't remember me. It was that actress who was trying to be the original girl who escaped. That's Sally. It. Yeah. I was like, yeah, of course he doesn't. You're just another fucking victim. Yeah. He didn't care. Plus, it's 50 years.
You've aged quite substantially, and your face changed.
And he probably just, didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
You're just another victim.
Yeah. You were meat. Yeah.
And, they tried so hard to be like Halloween 2018, and it's like, I don't know.
I feel like that's even starting to get done too much. The jump ahead. I know Halloween wasn't the first, but they were the most popular.
It definitely worked in their favor, and it worked for Jamie Lee Curtis. And let's face it, Halloween 2018 is probably the best sequel out of
Oh yeah.
all of them.
Because they had the time. They had the time to do whatever the fuck they wanted because nobody knew it was coming.
And on top of that, you had guys who actually gave a damn about the franchise. It wasn't just a job and just be like, oh yeah, we're gonna make Halloween. Was it like 12, whatever at that time? Because some of those guys, that was the other problem, was that it was just a job for them in the 80s.
Yeah.
Or whenever they were doing it. You know, like William Friedkin, he got The Exorcist, wasn't expecting franchise or nothing. It was just, here's a job and we gotta make this really good movie. I mean, he was a perfectionist to a T. So much so, he was a pain in the ass.
Literally.
I mean, like, they might have hated him on set, but they look back and respect him and go, hey, we got a project that's lived on and it's going to be a legacy for everybody now that was involved with it. So that says a lot.
Take for instance, was it last time? Or anyway, outside of the podcast here, we were talking about the Chucky series, where that's actually one series that literally has kept the continuity going, even now during a show. And that's actually the one that surprises me the most. Out of every slasher horror series that's in there, the fact that they actually have the continuity, the writer actually keeps up with it. It's his characters, and it's surprising. I'm curious to see where everything's going to keep going with it, because I can't even speculate anymore. I'm like, dude, you brought in a son, you had a wife, you now have a cult. What the fuck else? You possess your own daughter. I'm fucking lost at this point, man.
Yeah, I mean, I was never a huge Chucky fan. It was interesting, and then at one point I was like a lot of other people where I said, it's a fucking doll.
Yeah.
But I think it was even in the show that he does have a line where he says, like, you're probably wondering, how could a little doll be so strong?
Yeah, you got the man's strength in a doll's body.
Yeah, and it was, okay, it was like the power of the voodoo that he was using that not just transferred his spirit in there, but like almost everything that was him of a person was in the doll, basically.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. It only took 30 years to, have that out.
I kind of figured that, like, that first movie, Child's Play was probably the best out of the series, no matter what. And then I think it was Curse was probably the next best sequel, because they went from making it seem like it was Andy who was the killer, as they're like giving a little bit of information through. If you haven't seen this movie, go fuck off. It's spoiler time. And they're giving a little bit of information as they're playing along that it wasn't Andy at all. But when you get to the sequel, it's clearly now Chucky's fucking series and Andy's just in the back seat. And then 3, same thing. When you started realizing that Chucky became such a popular character because of that first movie, I feel like Andy himself really kind of was the backseat, even though he's been there probably the most. And then Fiona, Brad Dourif's daughter, probably the second most. So it's kind of crazy, like, them actually doing all that. Where even with Curse, they brought it back to the horror element. And the same thing, the whole time they were making it seem like it was the little girl. And then as they're playing out, like, oh yeah, this is a requel.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I first saw Curse, I was like, yo, this is solid. And I gotta admit, like it's not one of the better ones, but I think, like, if I had to do a 1, 2, 3, it would be, like, it would definitely be Child's Play, the first one, Cursed, and then Bride of Chucky, actually.
Bride of Chucky was actually, like, one of those movies I felt was actually better than it got criticized for, because they knew what they had, and even the guy said he used elements from Bride of Frankenstein, which made sense when you're watching everything play out. And I'm like, it's actually pretty smart.
It was Ronnie Yu who directed Freddy vs. Jason, and he said that he knew that when doing Chucky, he was like, you can't take this too seriously.
Oh, hell no.
And that's what he did when he came in to do Freddy vs. Jason. He said,
Yeah.
You can't take this too seriously, otherwise you're probably just going to go nuts and it might blow up in your face. It's almost like saying, like a comedian who's a comedian without actual acting chops and putting them in a serious movie, and it's just going to blow up, you know? Like Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd, they can play drama and comedy, you know, they're very multi-talented. But someone like Dane Cook, no. It's not gonna work.
Oh my god. Talking about not taking things seriously. The Leprechaun series. That is one that they did not take serious. They had fun with it. Even when they did the 25-year sequel, it was one of those things like, you really gonna try this? But yeah, dude, it played out the same. It was fun. They really
are fun. I mean,
yeah.
they are stupid fucking movies, but they are fun.
And it is cool seeing like we were talking about like I call them the big four, like Freddy, Jason, Leatherface, whatever. The fact that those are all stale right now because of everything, except for Michael Myers.
Yeah.
And then you got the other ones that are like, we'll say, just underneath, not like 100% like up here, like a top bar. They're like the ones right below. So you got Chucky, Leprechauns. Like they're starting to gain ground because of like everything else being stale on let's say A camp. And it's funny seeing this happen because like, yo, you've got these monsters. Why not just use them? Like, take for instance Pumpkinhead. That's probably one of the biggest monsters out there. It's just based on revenge. So it's like, why not use that more? I know there's 4 sequels or 3 sequels, and I'm like, you can always just bring it back for no fucking reason at all.
Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, Pumpkinhead was a really interesting movie. It was like very special effects driven. It had Lance Henriksen as the main character, and I believe it was directed by Stan Winston. It was his directorial debut, and it was basically about a father who was pissed off because a bunch of overprivileged kids kill his son, like what were they, like dirt biking or something?
Yeah.
They hit him and he dies, and the kid was like this guy's world. I mean, fuck. I mean, they tug at your heartstrings, and spoiled brats doing it. Yeah. Like no remorse really at all. He gets pissed and basically like has some connection to this Pumpkinhead legend from this witch, where his blood is connected to this monster, and the monster will go out and kill these kids, like almost as revenge. But I guess at the end of the day, he realizes what he's doing is wrong.
It also has like a moral story too. Like,
exactly,
is their life really worth taking because they made a poor choice? And it like as it plays out, it's a really good movie. The first one's amazing. Because it, like I said, it's morally like bring up stuff up. It's visually actually the monster's really cool.
Monster's very cool.
The one scene that always sticks out to me is the one kid goes outside and you just see the hands come down and grab the top of his head and pull him up. And I'm like, might be a girl too. Don't get me wrong. Kid. We'll just call him that.
Yeah.
Like you just see him get picked up by those big ass hands. I'm like, what the fuck?
I remember how it just like snuck into the house, and you could tell it's all practical effects, and it was so cool.
And it was big.
Exactly. And then it changes, like at one point it was like even adapting like Lance Henriksen's face, like as the movie goes on, like the more kills, it was almost like taking on his actual facial features then in a way.
Yeah.
There was really cool stuff to it. I never saw the sequels. I heard they were absolute trash, so I'm not even going to bother. But I can only imagine that they would just fuck it up if they would even try it again. Probably all CGI. And
I mean, I know a lot of horror now is starting to do the mixed, which is not a lot nicer to see because you have the element of using practicality and the CGI that obviously is now everyone's go-to. But if they can keep doing the mixed, I think it'll be fine because it's changing the times.
Yeah, I think there's a perfect way to have this balance where you need it instead of going all in. Like I know Rashetta and I have gone back and forth on this because I've seen how people on YouTube can take costumes and like make shit like a King Kong versus Godzilla look better on YouTube than what we get in Hollywood with like a mix of suits and like some home computer stuff. And John keeps insisting, no, you can't do it. And yeah, you can. I mean, I've even seen where people are actually in dinosaur outfits, but then you just kind of like green screen or blue screen the limbs out, and then they kind of get this more practical walk or movements, and the animatronics also blend in with it. And it's so much better than just all CGI, and it's just all fake. It brings believability back into it, like how like Pumpkinhead was kind of like a precursor for Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
It's almost like they said, well, if they can do this, then this can look like that. Was how I felt. And we've so gone away from it. I mean, look at Ninja Turtles. You know, that's another franchise where it's like you go from practical suits that were all practical to all CGI, and it didn't work. I even heard Steve Barron say that if he were going to do another Ninja Turtles movie again, what he would do is he would probably do them in suits, but have like the face cut out, and they would just do CGI for the face.
That makes sense because it'd probably a lot better for the actors, but like, dude, that's gotta be a lot to wear.
Oh, exactly. Well, they had like motors and shit inside the shell yet that controlled the eyes and the mouth, and if you look closely under their eyes, there's like a black slit. That's what they saw out of.
Oh no shit.
And I can only imagine how hard that was for them. So
those were big suits too. They were as amazing as they were. They were big.
They were huge. They were heavy. They said, remember like that Nerf foam?
Yeah.
They said that's what it was like.
Oh. Speaking of like new sequels, there is actually internet buzz right now that they want a Scooby-Doo 3 with Matt Lillard and all them, but as more adult themed because now that they're older and the fact that the monsters are real.
I like that.
Because everyone's hitting up James Gunn right now for it, and that's one. I've been saying this for a little while because I'm like, I just rewatched the other two with Thea, and I'm like, they're really good. I know they're a little dated, but I'm like, even the story wise, they're great. And I'm like, I go, they could have done one more and then called it, and then all of a sudden it just seems like it all of a sudden caught buzz because of Scream. Matt Lillard is a lot better actor than everyone gives him credit for.
Yeah, I agree.
And like, I've defended him for a while, and I'm still saying he's probably the original killer in Scream. But that's the thing. Like, he's done a lot of movies, a lot of shows, and it's just like, it feel like out of, let's say, I'm gonna just go with the Screamcast. He's not the one that everyone goes to, and I'm like, dude, fucking guy actually did amazing. He just was crazy. He's always been my go-to for Shaggy, and I would love to see him now that he's in his 50s.
I think so, yeah.
I mean, he still looks good.
Yeah.
And it's like, I would love to see him and them kind of get back together and realize, like, all the monsters they've been going up against are actually, real. And especially it would fit the times because we're starting to realize that people in masks aren't just all that are there.
Well, it's like that, I think I posted this somewhere that it was a picture of a Great Dane, like, it was a picture of a Great Dane. It was in black and white. It wasn't Scooby-Doo per se, but it said if there's one thing Scooby-Doo taught us, it's that all the monsters were human.
Yeah.
And I was like, uh-huh.
That's the funny thing. It's always tell Thea too when she's scared. If like we're watching Scooby-Doo, I'm like, it's a person in a mask. It's a human. They're the problem. And she looks at me. I say it every time because I'm like, even if she says there's a monster somewhere, I'm like, there's no monsters. I go, just me, you, and your imagination. It's like the real monsters are out there. And it's funny because like that's one thing that Scooby-Doo has always taught us. Like no matter what the problem is, it's just someone's behind it. And,
always.
Like and that's one series I would love to see just one more. And I feel like that one's another one that kind of got played out for a while because like how popular those two movies went. They did all those crazy fucking spin-offs.
Yeah. And then they have so much more potential with a Scooby-Doo movie. Like they could even make it like a little more horror-filled without it being too kiddie, like over the top. I think they could make it something like what Ninja Turtles was actually. Yeah. Like it could be dark but kind of there with the humor, and then put in like serious situations but still make it fun. And hell, one of my favorite Scooby-Doo movies is actually Zombie Island, where they...
Oh, off top, dude. I just downloaded that.
where they... I still remember when that was advertised and it was on Cartoon Network, and I watched it and I said, holy shit, this is so good.
Dude, the werecats, everything. Like they did try to like recreate it again, but it didn't have the same feel.
No. I remember the first time when they did it and you saw these zombie pirates, and I was just like, this is fucking wild. And the narration at the end of the trailer was, this time the monsters are real, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm sold.
I think the follow-up one, the witch's ghost, and it's essentially a Salem, but that one's another really good one where the monster was real. So it was actually somebody that they were working with who brought the ghost back to life.
I think I remember that one vaguely.
It essentially was like, if we met Stephen King and then kind of like find out that he was trying to bring back all these monsters that he created. Essentially like that concept.
Okay.
But it wasn't more until, I would say, more the recent ones where they started actually kind of bringing the horror element back to the Scooby-Doo in the cartoon world. again, a cartoon world, where they're like actually playing out like, yeah, it's still people, but yeah, it's a lot scarier now. So they're trying to like mix it perfectly so that you can still, as an adult who's been watching it now, for me, let's say 35 years, and people who are now getting introduced to it are kind of like, all right, this is not as kiddie as we all believe.
Yeah.
Because like I know HBO Max is about to put a new show out where it's just called Velma, and that's totally adult theme, like how Harley Quinn's gonna be. Well, is.
Okay.
So like the swearing, the violence, like so it's gonna show that Velma is dealing with that shit now, which is nice. But yeah, I think one more live action movie from just the original movie cast would be fun. I don't know really where they would go from it because like even if they would take it more towards the horror element, but try to keep it so it's similar. I'm trying to think like what they could compare it to. Ernest Scared Stupid, like it was
there
really
you go. Yeah,
really horror elemented, but really fun for everybody. I would love to see the sequel to that. I'm not gonna lie. I would joke around about like have John Cena play his like son.
Know what I mean, Vern?
Yeah, exactly.
That would be something.
Especially now how popular Peacemaker is and how big he was in Suicide Squad. I felt like that'd be perfect. Out of all the Ernest movies, I think Ernest Scared Stupid is probably like the one that holds a special place in my heart.
Yeah, me too. I remember thinking that was scary and wild. It was almost like had that Power Ranger shit where like turning the kids into wooden dolls.
Yeah.
Like they were like from a little troll out in the woods. There was like some scary stuff to it, man. It was wild. And then Ernest saves the day.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, man, this movie's actually like really intense for for like a family comedy thing.
And the funny thing is, I just explained that to Lexi, and she goes, "I've never seen it." I go, "Excuse me?"
What?
Yeah, so I'm like trying to find it now. She's like, "I'm not gonna watch it."
Just the title.
Yeah. Just the title alone is just ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised they did do the sequel to Hocus Pocus. Out of everything that got sequels, that is following the same trope of like the 25 years later. I think we're now 27, but that actually comes out in September.
Yeah.
And it, like I said, it's not that it's horror, but a lot of horror family elements are in there. But yet it's still it's a Disney movie.
Yeah, I mean, not everything has to be scary. I mean, I love it when you can just add like stuff that you can have for like a Halloween party or create characters that you can dress up as and still have fun with and not make it too serious. Like Ghostbusters is a lot like that as well.
Do you know what? One movie that felt still deserves a sequel? The Burbs.
Wow, yeah.
Because we got introduced to that, and like to me, that's actually like my favorite Tom Hanks movie. Because like once again, family horror element, it always intrigued me because like living in a neighborhood, you don't know that new neighbor, and the fact that they're really fucking weird. And you're like, all right, so you start speculating, and then you're kind of like realizing like that neighborhood mentality that you're probably worse than that fucking neighbor is. So then you come to find out that all your speculations are real. I would love to see just like even if it's a sequel or a remake or whatever, but still have some of the original neighbors there. I think it'd be funny as hell.
Well, that kind of goes in line with like true stories too. Like John Wayne Gacy, he was just a guy in the neighborhood, and then all of a sudden he's got kids buried in his basement and shit. It's like, it's as fucked up as it is. It's believable.
Yeah, but the fact that they made light out of it is like just crazy enough that it was like, all right, let's do a little bit of comedy, a little bit of this terror element up here.
Hell, I think Elvira should have gotten a better sequel treatment than what she got with Haunted Hills.
But I think that was more a tribute. She loves Vincent Price and definitely could see it in that movie.
Oh, for sure. I mean, not that like it's not that I didn't dislike Haunted Hills, but I just felt like she deserved like a better, grander, sequel.
Oh yeah.
Or like another like TV movie or something.
Honestly, I would love to see Mistress of the Dark too. Like I'd love to see an older version of Elvira now, like still being Elvira.
Yeah, and like saying things like, "Boy, do I not age, or do I not age?"
Something
like that.
I'm gonna hit her up on Instagram now.
Yeah.
After your 40th anniversary, come on, we can do one more movie. Call it.
I mean, the popularity's there. Why not?
Yeah.
But even those people that still have this popularity and can still make money. It's like getting a movie made is just like still really hard to find that funding to do it. It sucks. It really does suck because fans have so many ideas and so many things that they want to see, and they're not always given to us. And then when they say, "Oh, here's a sequel to something we don't want," we're like, "Why are you making this? We don't give a fuck." And then it bombs, and then they still like, "Oh, here's another sequel." Why? Why?
All right, so here's a sequel. I think I sent you the email about. I got it like 2 years ago. So we're actually getting Night of the Living Dead 2, George Romero's script treatment, and I'm kind of curious to see how that plays out because it's supposed to follow the events of Day of the Dead. But now you're taking the fact that everyone's now older. So I'm kind of curious to see how that plays out. When you brought that up, it clicked. I'm like, no shit. There's one sequel that I'm actually excited for because they're using his original script. They might have to change it, obviously, for the times,
sure.
But the fact it's his. And I'm like, dude, he is the godfather of gore, like the zombies, everything. And the fact they're going to do that and try to kind of go and build on his universe that's already there. So, like, to me, the real ending to his universe is Land of the Dead, because Survival of the Dead was straight trash. And Diary of the Dead was going back to the beginning, but current times.
Okay.
So, Land of the Dead was a nice ending, but it's like, well, those zombies were smart. And trying to see where that universe went off. Like, yeah, we got the reboot of Day of the Dead, which to me, I feel like the precursor to that is now Army of the Dead. Or Dawn of the Dead, I should say that. Yeah. But Army of the Dead was a nice breath of fresh air for the zombie universe. But now I feel like that's going to be the precursor for everything.
Probably. And just keep in mind, like, keep your expectations low on that because we might get his treatment, but it could be totally nothing at all like what he had in mind.
That's why I was like, I'm excited, but I'm not. I think I'm more excited the fact it's his script, but it's like, is it really going to be...
Yeah, and with him not around to say, like, can we work around this or take this or that out? There might be 3 pages of shit, and if they say, "Oh yeah, this was inspired by his treatment," yeah, it was inspired by his treatment, but it's not actually there.
Really need to,
like, oh yeah, all these ideas are great, but yeah, we're not gonna film this. Throw this out, change this, change that.
Yeah,
and that's what sucks.
And George Romero's universe is always going to be different than everybody's because, like, he had an idea, he went with it. Even with the book he put out, I can't remember off the top of my head, it was half finished. So, like, somebody had to come in and finish it so they can put it out. And even then, it showed, like, how the zombies communicate rather than, like, we all thought, like, if one zombie knows you're in there, they hear the zombie. No, they're a hive mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like they all think about eating. So, when someone goes, "Oh, food," they all know where the food's at. And it was funny because, like, I didn't realize that, like, it wasn't, like, it's George Romero's universe. I'm like, cool. So I thought, like, they all hear each other. There you go. No, it's a hive mind. It's like once you're bit, you're now part of the group. And it made sense. I was like, oh, shit. And then as you, like, start, I guess, aging as a zombie, you get smarter.
Huh. That's interesting.
That's why we got the, like, one using the machine gun and trying to figure out how to use weapons. And you get the smartest one out of the group, so it's like overtime. So I feel like if that would be the end of his universe, a better ending, and survival, I think it'd be fine. So there's a lot out there. Like, I know, like I said, to me, I feel like horror is starting to have, like, a bigger upturn because of, like, you can play it in current times. You can use a lot of, like, current events to make new horror. Like, shit, there was, like, 4 COVID zombie fucking movies I saw pictures for. I'm like, absolutely not, because we all know it's trash. I don't watch every fucking horror movie.
Like, don't we have enough to deal with COVID alone? We don't need zombies involved with it.
And it just, that's what I'm starting to see now, because, like, to me, I felt like it got popular because of, like, The Conjuring and those A24 films and all that, and just, like, you don't have to make every, like, scary movie.
Yeah.
This comes from my mouth.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be some curious times, that's for sure. I have seen, like, some of the upticks, like you said. I haven't seen any new characters really to base a franchise on like we used to, which is kind of sad. I mean, not that that's always the answer for everything. I mean, they tried putting Linda Blair in the second Exorcist, and that didn't work out at all.
I mean, that movie, it expanded the universe, but didn't really do anything for the series.
Yeah, it brought some things to light. I mean, they took some stuff from the book that answered questions for anybody who just watched the movie and was like, oh, what's the demon?
Yeah.
Shit like that. A little bit more about Father Merrin. But at the end of the day, that shit was in the book anyway, so it was there.
And don't get me wrong, I think the Exorcist 3 was actually pretty good.
Yeah,
Dude, that one scene that everyone will always remember is the scene with the giant fucking clippers. Dude, you know it's coming. It's very uncomfortable. It's just like, oh no, man, something's happening. And it kind of just sits there a little longer than you expect just to build that tension. Also, like, haha!
And for those who don't know, Exorcist 3 was a book written by William Blatty. It was technically a sequel, if you will, to the Exorcist book, but except the book was called Legion, and he was going to direct. He did direct the movie Exorcist 3, but it was originally going to be Legion, like the book as well. And here, the studio said that they liked what they saw, and because it was William Peter Blatty, that they wanted it to be called Exorcist 3, and he said, well, we don't even have an Exorcist scene in there, so I think they redid some stuff at the very end.
Yeah, which was like unnecessary, but I get it.
I mean, you can say it's like an Exorcist movie, except it's not a demon who's being possessed. And if you look up the definition of Legion, how it's these like demons that, or like fallen spirits that can inhabit people and try to like build an army through possession. I think that's what the definition of what was going on was supposed to be.
Where I think the main villain was multiple spirits in one body.
Exactly, and he could jump from another body to another body, but he had to have like one steady vessel. I think almost like a battery. Like here's the battery, recharge, get done with this person, go back there. And it was Brad Dourif at the end.
Yeah,
it was almost like another like Chucky in a way. Like you do this and then run away, escape, and then pretend to be the dog.
Oh gosh. Well, with wrapping this up, was there any other ones that you thought deserved a requel, reboot, even a future that we didn't mention already?
I'm more of the guy who kind of like, as long as there's a good ending to like the original series, that's what I want to see more. Like I'm happy with Freddy vs. Jason being a last one, or Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and they call it a day. But like I said, if like something right is there where they can do like this weird tribute or have everybody come back together and Robert Englund somehow does one last appearance, it's like I'm not going to be upset about it. If Kane Hodder can come back and they can give some more substance to a Friday the 13th movie, that would be great. Same with Halloween. I think it'd be more interesting to bring Danielle Harris back in it again and maybe go like that alternate route with Michael Myers, or discovering more than what we knew, and she could have like Dr. Loomis's notes or something guiding her, or
I mean, even if they got the guy that played young Dr. Loomis to play an older version, I think it would be a nice fitting thing showing that she was with him for a while before he finally passed.
There's an idea as well. Even if there was a third movie to Rob Zombie's Halloween and he just wrote it or produced it and let somebody else take the reins and say, like, this was what I did wrong and here's this Lori and how her story ends. Like, I could see something like that and be happy with it.
But I feel like it would change the feel.
It would. I don't think it's necessary. I mean, would I be curious about it? Yeah, I would be. I'd rather him do the Danielle Harris route, personally.
Yeah, I feel like that, out of all the Halloween timelines, Danielle Harris's one kind of like fell at the wayside when 6 hit.
Yeah, and it was very unfair, and I think she's a very talented actress, and I'd rather see her than Jamie Lee Curtis anyway, personally.
Yeah. No offense, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like, they try with so many Hellraisers, I don't really care. I was never really a big Hellraiser fan. I respect the first movie, but
I was the first two, to me, like, were worth it. Past that, it was money grab.
Yeah, and, like, 7 of the sequels weren't even really Hellraiser movies. They just threw Pinhead in them and said, oh yeah, it's a Hellraiser movie now.
Ha
Off the top of my head, I can't really think of too many other horror movies now that should or could get a special treatment. I'd like to see something, believe it or not, more from like Tales from the Crypt again, make some sort of a comeback.
Part of me actually thought you were gonna say that too, because like when we were talking about the horror host and we brought that up, like dude, we both were just like foaming at the mouth the fact that like we brought it up, and we were both excited because dude, that's one thing that made us as kids.
It was.
As fucked up as that sounds, like dude, that made us because like it was a monster telling stories about real monsters.
Yeah, and there wasn't ever a happy ending to it. And when you thought there was a happy ending, no, there was a twist at like the last few seconds, and you're like, oh shit.
And then that motherfucker would tell a bad pun and then end the show. We saw what was really eating him.
But yeah, I mean, there's not really a whole lot I can say. I mean, I know some people I heard say Jaws, and I'm like, why? Just let the classic be the classic. I mean, that's a clear-cut case of the movie was better than the book.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, the movie's actually stupid.
Stay the fuck out of the water.
Yeah.
Giant fucking shark.
And the shark has a personality. It's like ingenious, you know.
Fuck you, Brody.
Yeah, yeah, I know, right? But
fuck your whole family.
but I'm not gonna like fault it for it. You know, even Indiana Jones has its faults because of its dating, and it cracks me up because a lot of people don't like fault movies like Indiana Jones or Jaws, you know, for them looking aged and dated as they are. But one of the first fucking things I hear about Batman '89 is, oh, it's so dated.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Listen, I watched Jaws 3 more times than I'll admit, and you can definitely see what was air quote 3D. Leah Thompson could not save that movie. I'm glad she stuck with Back to the Future.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, I really don't know. I mean, everything's kind of getting its own special treatment. Like, outside of horror, I think it's cool, like, Star Wars is getting, you know, like, a better treatment than what the prequels gave it, or I don't know what they have in mind for, like, the future past the main characters, and honestly, I'm just kind of burned up from it, because they fucked it up so much.
That and, like, oversaturated too much. Dude, I'm actually, this does sound weird, I'm excited and scared for the new Jurassic World, because, like, it's something from our childhood that, like, really good, really popular, but it's just like, alright, so now this is the end of this trilogy. Are we gonna have to wait another fucking 15 years and then let's do another trilogy? How many times are you gonna fucking have dinosaurs on an island?
Yeah. Until it officially fucking ends.
I was gonna joke and say I would love to see a remake of Dirty Dancing, but I feel like there's already a bad one out there.
I think there is.
I think there's a sequel. I know that.
Yeah,
much.
I know. Yeah, I remember that there was a sequel to. I think it was called Havana Nights or something.
I saw it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, my fault.
Yeah, I mean, overall, at the end of the day, I mean, there's things that I think just shouldn't be remade or requeled, but I can't really say that either because sometimes they get better. I mean, look at it.
Yeah. All right, don't get me wrong. I love both versions of it because it brought two different elements to the story. I feel like if I give too much, we can never use this as an episode. Simply, all right, so you have a made-for-TV movie for ABC, which everyone loved, but they had to tone down fucking everything because it's on TV. 2017 rolls around. We get that first one. That first one's fucking phenomenal, especially with that opening that really fucked everybody up. Then that sequel came along and pissed me right the fuck off.
Oh, that was bad.
So it's like, all right, so you got 100% amazing, 50% what the fuck, and then you got this ABC, like, all the way through, like, all right, this is amazing. So it's like you got, like, 80% over here, and you got, like, a straight 75 over here. So come on. Can we at least get one fucking...
Yeah. But there are some other things that I will say. I think it's cool, like, after time, they bring them back. Like you said, Rob Zombie doing the Munsters. I think it's a good time that things have passed by. I know they've tried other things like 1313 Mockingbird Lane with Eddie Izzard as
I
Grandpa.
was excited to see that. I can never find it. But
I can't find it either.
Yeah, which is weird because you normally find anything on the fucking internet.
Not that one. I wouldn't mind seeing something more live action with the Addams Family again. I think that would be cool.
I do enjoy the cartoons, movies, I guess they're called.
Mm-hmm.
But the people they have playing the voices, I would love to see them more as a live action. Like Oscar Isaacs is the perfect embodiment of a real life Gomez. And I'm like, and then like looking at Charlize Theron as Morticia would be amazing. Yeah. So it's like they have all the elements there. It's just like, just make the effort.
Yeah. Another one that I wouldn't mind seeing more of is Beetlejuice.
I know there's a lot of talk about Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder wanting that sequel happening. And I'm hoping it does because like every now and again you hear rumors, but the fact is like it's starting to build steam now. I'm like, Is it really gonna happen though? I'm like, dude, he's what? Fucking old.
70.
Yeah. And Winona Ryder is really popular right now because of Stranger Things. So it's like you've got the opportunity. He's popular now because of Vulture. So
and he's coming back as Batman again.
And so it's like, come on, we got this opportunity. Let's do something here. I don't know who the fuck owns it anymore. Probably Warner Brothers.
Yeah, probably.
And they know what the fuck.
Oh yeah, they know exactly what to do.
I mean, even drag Tim Burton down to fucking whoever's basement and just
yeah, I know, right? And slap him around and be like, "Be good again."
I don't even care if they throw Johnny Depp in it. Just fucking get over it. Have him as a realtor or something. I don't care.
Just tell him Amber Heard's behind him. That'll chase him right on set.
On that note, let's just wrap this up.
That's a horror movie in itself, right there.
Yeah, dude, that's a shit show. I can't believe you brought it up.
Shit show. I get it.
Oh, get it. All right, that's it.
All right. So on that note, this will conclude our episode of Jeff and Collin in the Morning. This is Collin Peters.
And Jeff Manfred.
Thank you all once again for listening.
Are you sure, though?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Stay safe. Stay crazy.
Please, somebody help me.
Oh, yeah.